Thank you very much, and it's an honor to be here today. And what a great crowd that you have. And we are kind of between sessions over in the Senate, so it's an honor to be here. I don't know if you can see it from where you're sitting, but I'm wearing my my MSBA certified board member pin. So, isn't that cool? So, I figured that would give me an extra dessert, you think, by wearing that. So, how many school board members do we have? Can I see your hands? Wow, that's great. That's great. Thank you very much for making the trek to Jefferson City. And you join about thousands of other members across the state who are school board members, and it's a very, very important job that you do. And so we appreciate what you do. You know, sometimes, and I see some of my colleagues in the House and the Senate that are here, our job is tough. There are some things that it's not easy. But I tell you what, being on a school board is really tough. Is very, very tough. And you know exactly what it's like being on a school board. I like it when you're a school board member and you're going to church or you're going to the grocery store or you're going someplace and somebody says, "Hi, David, how you doing?" Wait a minute, you're on the school board, aren't you? And then sometimes you want to say, well, it depends. And then, of course, then we visit with our constituents for a long time. But that's part of it, because you're our reflection of the school district, you're a reflection of the board, and basically that's your job as being a school board member. I never will forget, I was just elected to the Warrensburg School Board and got one of those phone calls. You're never prepared when the phone call happens. You know, you never know who's going to be on the other end. You never know what the topic's going to be. And I had not gone through MSBA board training. So I was green and hadn't been trained. And the person on the other end, he started off by saying not a very kind word. I'm not going to mention that here. And the conversation just went downhill. And he started getting mad, and I started getting mad, and he started yelling, I started yelling. And my wife was in the kitchen just watching the whole thing. And after the conversation was over, about 30 minutes later, I hung up, and my wife looked at me and she goes, "You didn't handle that very well, David." So I thought, thanks a lot, you know. And but you learn from situations like that. And we finally got the issue solved, and things were much better. But you know, serving on the school board for 9 years was a tremendous opportunity, a great learning experience. I feel, anybody here from Columbia? Anybody here from Columbia? And your superintendent is Chris Belcher, right? Okay, good or bad, I feel like I trained Chris Belcher because we sat together for, don't ask your board, okay, all right. But we sat together for years on the school board, and we worked very, very closely together. You know, sometimes a popular pastime is to sit around and criticize. It's very easy to sit on the sidelines and criticize things. And a lot of times we hear that with public education. It's easy to sit on the sides and just criticize and to say that things are going wrong. And when people come to me and start criticizing or complaining, in particular about public education, one of the first things I say to them is, well, what have you done? What have you done? And when people say, back when I was in school, how many times have you heard that? Then a lot of times you know the conversation might not be going so well. But what have you done? And one of the first things when people say that to me is I say, have you ever run for school board? Have you ever been on PTA? Have you ever volunteered to go in and be a mentor? Have you ever read to first graders? Have you ever helped the coach? Have you ever volunteered to help your schools be a better school? And a lot of times when you hear the complaints, the people who are doing the complaining have never offered to help. And so it's so important when you see a need, see a role to play, that you step up to run and be on the school board. It's not easy. I mean, some of you, I'm sure, ran the first time or maybe the second time, didn't even get elected. And you came back a second time or a third time to finally be elected. And so it's very important that you see the importance of service on your school board. I look out and see a lot of administrators as well. And that's not an easy job either. Being a superintendent administrator in a community is probably one of the most visible, one of the most vocal, and one of the toughest jobs in any community. I wouldn't want to be a superintendent. It's a very, very tough job. And yet at the same time, we're on the same team. It kind of surprised me when I first got the legislature that there was a animosity between the legislature and superintendents, between legislatures and school boards. And really nothing could or should be further from the truth. Folks, we are on the same team. It's not you, it's not me, it's not them, it's us. It's we. Don't you believe that? And so when we are coming up with legislation, when we are coming up with policies, it's not to jab somebody, it's not to get even, it's not to put people down. Rather, it's how can we work together? How can we uplift? How can we do things to improve public education in our state? That's the way that I try to conduct myself as a state senator. That's the way I try to conduct our hearings in the Senate Education Committee. And that's the kind of legislation that I like to see discussed on the Senate floor, and legislation then that we send over to the House. We are working together. We are not in a separate issue. It's very important to stay involved. It's very important to stay active. There's a lot of exciting bills that are going on right now. There's a lot of bills that are being debated that your representatives and your senators need to hear from right now. You can't wait 3 weeks or a month to talk about it and visit about it. They need to hear from you right now. Don't worry that you might not be an expert on the issue. Don't worry that you don't have all the facts and figures that you possibly could get, but rather they need to hear from you right now. And so that's one of the important things of coming to Jefferson City, our seat of state government, to talk to your elected officials and to let them know about issues. And if you don't know all the details, be honest about it. But just say, here are some ideas about this bill, here are some concerns, or maybe just even ask the state rep or the state senator, how do they feel on certain issues? I think that's very important. A lot of important legislation going on right now, also the budget. We're right in the process of that. Currently the budget bill is in the House, and the House is working on it. They'll work on it during the month of March or so. And then after spring break, it'll go over to the Senate, and then basically from April and early part of May, we will be working on the budget. So obviously, the budget is a very, very top concern. I'd just like to say in closing that it's so important that we all work together, that we all sense the urgency of having a relationship with the legislature. And as far as school board members and folks that are in administration, find ways to invite your elected officials to come to your schools. During spring break or on Fridays when we're not in session, call up your state rep and say, hey, how would you like to come tour an 8th grade science class? How would you like to have lunch with a group of first graders? Because believe me, that's pretty interesting, isn't it, to do that? And it never hurts to say, oh, by the way, we'll have a camera there to take a picture, and we might even put it in the local newspaper. So mention that phrase, photo op. That always really helps. Don't assume that the state rep or the senator knows about your program, because for the most part, we don't. So unless you take that opportunity to do that, we probably haven't had that opportunity. 2 weeks ago, Representative Mike Lair, I don't know if he's here or not. Is Mike here? Mike set up a tour to Chula. How many of you have been to Chula? Can I see your hands? A few of you have, okay, all right. He set up a tour to Chula, Missouri. Chula is about 10 miles northeast of Chillicothe. And probably has about 85 students, K through 8. And it was late on a Friday afternoon. We'd already toured the prison, already done Chamber of Commerce route and all that stuff. And so it was our last stop of the day, going to Chula, Missouri. It was one of the most amazing stops that I've ever had since I've been in the legislature. 7th and 8th graders, 2 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. Can you imagine that? And when Representative Blair and I walked in, they had been waiting for us all week. And they had all these wonderful questions about the legislature. Even asked about a small schools grant. Can you believe that? So they were ready to go. And it was just a wonderful opportunity. So it doesn't matter if you're Chula or Independence or Kansas City or Warrensburg. Take those opportunities to get to know your state representative and state senators, because believe me, they want to learn and they want to be a part of education. You know, in public education, we don't pick and choose. We don't pick the ones who come in that door. We take everybody. And every day there are 800,000 students that we take care of. We don't get the cream of the crop. We don't get to be selective. We take everybody. And so that's why it is so important that we give tools to our teachers, our schools, to take care of everybody. And as long as I'm in the Senate, I will keep that in mind, that we are here about educating the public, and I will do all I can do to support public education. Thank you. Keep up the good work.